All right, and we are live. Welcome, everybody. This is Joe Milton of the ISPWP, the International Society of Professional Wedding Photographers. And today we've got the pleasure of talking to Matt Wilson, one of our ISPWP
Hey,
members out of Denver, Colorado. Hey, Matt.
hey, how's it going?
Hey, good. Nice to see you.
Thank you. Thanks for having me.
Oh, my pleasure. Uh, we want to talk about Denver because I know you're in Denver. We talked briefly
Sure.
before we got started. What's the Denver market like? What's it? How's the wedding photographer community there?
Um, it's healthy. I've moved a number of times, and everywhere I go, everybody complains about it being saturated.
Everywhere.
This is
Yeah.
kind of the first time I really felt it pretty well.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
But it's and for me maybe a little tougher market just because you're in a beautiful place. Um,
Yeah.
it's hard to if you stick some beautiful people looking beautiful in front of a beautiful scene, you're gonna get some beautiful photos.
Yeah.
but
Yeah.
um, but
No lack of
surprisingly,
mountains around there, you know?
yeah, no. But thankfully, I've had when I moved back here, I was a little worried that my portfolio was a little lacking in that department, but I was getting and still get people that come for the way I'm catching moments
Mm-hmm.
and that care maybe more about moments. And I think there was some folks out in Portland near you that started that Moments Over Mountains
Mm-hmm.
thing, but there's definitely people that feel like it's that's not the hardest part of shooting a wedding, maybe, and that it's getting the connections between people, and that's been cool to see from clients that appreciate that.
Yeah. Good. Well,
But
let's.
there's a healthy group, of people that are have been, supportive, cool to hang out with. Tons of really talented people, and that are also just genuinely cool people as well.
Mm-hmm.
So yeah, it's been good.
Well, let's
Uh,
talk about that first. Let's talk about that a bit about moving around and getting reestablished, and then we're going to circle back and go to your origin story,
okay.
the origin of Matt. So moving around. So where have you lived? Where have you shot weddings? Where did you get? You know, tell us about your moving around and how to reestablish yourself and
Okay.
that kind of struggle.
Yeah. Well, just on a personal level, I grew up moving around a lot, so
Hmm.
that personal side has been fairly easy. On uh, maybe too easy to just keep going.
Was it like a military type family or a situation or
No, my parents were for their church. Basically, they were like lay ministers that kind of volunteered to go wherever they
a
wanted to
lot of
go,
mission trips are in there?
but in the States.
Hmm.
And so I don't know if that just kept going for some reason in my blood, but after getting married, we got married in Baltimore, moved out here to Colorado, and then my wife went to medical school. But I think it just has taken time, and every time you move, it's kind of seen what works again in a new area. I've kind of
Mm.
learned that it's different areas are different, and you need to try out new things, or something that may have worked in the one city or state might not work in another, or maybe just it's going to take a little bit more time.
Yeah.
I think everybody's feeling it since we moved here 2 years ago. It sounds like a lot of people everywhere with 2019 maybe we're feeling a
Hmm.
little dip. So I feel like this time maybe is taking a little longer than I was hoping to get back to full steam. But
Yeah.
I think that's a lot of it is just trying to do work that's unique enough, that will stand out enough, and just takes time to get people people's eyeballs on it and get enough word
Yeah.
of mouth going, as well as just and here, no matter if you're listing on some place, or Instagram or whatever, there's a million other photographers here hustling, doing the
Yeah.
same thing.
Sure.
But sometimes it just takes time,
Yeah.
and
I think people underestimate the amount of self promotion you have to do if you're this entrepreneurial type of business where you're basically do almost everything yourself, right?
yeah.
Yeah. And I
My
found
motto's
too.
kind of been
Yeah.
like the throw spaghetti at the wall, see what sticks sort of motto
Yeah.
of marketing.
Yeah.
So
That's
it's kind of start out that way the first year, and then kind of filter out what's not working.
yeah. Well, I do know, like
that's
in
the
different
best.
locations, in different geographies, in different cities, kind of a thing, you'll have some areas where, like wedding planners play a really big part, and in some parts of the country, not so much.
Right,
Some parts of the country, they're very big on these bridal shows, where you have to be at the bridal show if you're going to get any business. And
right,
other cities, no, not really. So you really have to sort. You're right. You have to feel out the local market, feel where it works. And I find if you can find some other photographers that are willing to, network and build a community, then you can share back and forth. And I always like to think that a rising tide lifts all boats. So if
right.
you have a good community and you help each other, it really just helps everybody, I think.
Yeah, it was something I knew that I had still trying now because
Hmm.
it's not really my forte of organizing people and getting people together, but have at least tried to
Hmm.
join other groups, but also just start my own group, invite people out to go places. Started with the Fearless group that was here and see who would come to taco night or something. But
Hmm.
um, and I find that that's definitely a huge part of moving around is finding a community.
Yeah.
Thankfully, when I was in Illinois before this, I met people through doing a bridal show, and they were just really cool group of people there. It was a little surprising moving from New Jersey to like Peoria, Central Illinois
Hmm.
area, and I won't lie, I was a little like thinking I was going to be like coming in and I'm going to blow these guys away here in Midwest. And I go in this little, I mean, outside of Peoria is actually where we lived in a town of about 15,000 people.
Hmm.
And in that town, there was, I don't know if you know Jeff and Julia Woods.
Sure.
They live there. They moved since then. Um, Probably about three other like nationally recognized photographers in
Hmm.
that little town. Plus Peoria, there was other people that were, nationally recognized and published people. And
Yeah.
so I came in a little shocked, like, oh my, there's like
Yeah.
this place, there's all these awesome photographers here. I had no idea, and
Yeah, well, you're either going to have that scenario where you're surprised by the amount of national or international talent that's in this little tiny area, or you can go to a space and there's some photographers have been there for so long and are so established, it's hard to break in, right?
yeah,
Because yeah, lots of different challenges for moving. Yeah, you want to be the established photographer there.
right. I was
Okay,
slowly getting there and
yeah,
then moved again.
yeah. Well, let's talk about your background then. So I'm always curious about the origin story. How people get started because people come from all sorts of different backgrounds and ways that they get started. So what's your photography origin story?
um, so before I was doing wedding photography, I had a business doing custom kitchens and custom furniture.
Wow.
Yeah, and that was okay.
Mm-hmm.
I was sort of I had a film camera years ago when I was in art school that got stolen at some point, so that really didn't really make an impact. But um, there's sort of the derogatory word of momtographer with moms that have kids that start doing photography.
Mm-hmm.
I was kind of
Mm-hmm.
Mr. Momtographer. So
Dadtographer.
yeah, I stayed at home with our kids initially, and was a stay-at-home dad, and that was kind of when I, just started taking a million
Mm-hmm.
photos of kids, and but then it wasn't really too serious other than family photos, and then we moved to my wife decided to go to medical school, and we ended up being in Grenada for 2 years in the Caribbean, and at that point I thought I should get I knew I wasn't technically going to be able to work there,
Mm-hmm.
so I thought I'd get a halfway decent camera and some lenses, and we're going to be living in a cool place, take a bunch of photos. And then it turned out that there was a couple expats down there that also did weddings,
Mm-hmm.
or that did weddings. I wasn't doing them yet, and I jumped in with them a couple times, and didn't really think I'd be uh, continuing to do it when I got back. I thought maybe I'd go back into kitchens,
Mm-hmm.
and probably did maybe four or five weddings down there, and Then we ended up in New Jersey for 2 more years of school for my wife, and that was recession had hit in between there. Half my tools from our storage unit had been stolen. It was near impossible to get a job as like a designer that wasn't just straight commission.
You get a lot of things stolen, Matt.
I know it. Well,
bad luck.
That was Baltimore, Chicago. Things get stolen. I don't know. But so going to New Jersey, it was kind of like, I can't get a job. Weddings have been pretty fun. I'll try to stick with it. Actually, a college roommate of mine, when he found out I was doing it in Grenada, had said, you remember my old roommate Todd? He does it. You should look at his work. And that was Todd Laffler, who was
I know Todd.
His roommate before my college roommate. Todd was kind of graduating when I came into school. And I connected with him. I think the first time he was like, I told him, hey, I'm Nick's old roommate too. I'm getting into wedding photography. If there's any way, I could jump in and help you or something. And he was like, oh, hey, good luck.
So, no.
I kind of joke with him about that. That's how it felt. I don't know how much it was like that, but eventually he did need some help and put a call out that I answered. And so I helped assist with him for about 1.5 years while we were living in New Jersey.
Oh, great.
And
great mentor. Yeah.
Yeah, it was kind of like a little workshop every week. I worked with him. And then I worked for a studio, like a wedding mill type place. So I would kind of go and watch him and learn stuff, and then go and try things out, on my own at this wedding studio. So that kind of gave me a good base,
Sure.
For
there's really no substitute for volume, right? For sheer quantity. There's things you can learn through doing that. That's the only way to do it, is just through doing it so many times. Things become second nature, and your camera becomes an extension of your hand, kind of a thing, just because you do it all the time. Yeah.
Yeah, and plus, like any workshop, sometimes it's one thing to try and get inspiration from people's work and try and figure it out on your own, and then jump into a wedding, hoping to repeat it, and it's another whole thing. And I think a more of an advantage to go and see somebody do it and not have to worry about consequences of trying it out, and you kind of seeing them do it enough and helping them do it enough really helps kind of just make it become second nature for you.
In a way, I really like that the whole story, because it's a great combination of situations and experience and opportunity that not very many people get. On the one hand, you're being mentored under a great photographer, so you're, like you said, you're learning techniques, you're learning approaches or whatever, and at the same time, working for a studio, you're getting paid to work for the studio and deliver good work is good enough for the clients, but also able to stretch yourself, apply those things that you're learning on the side over a high number of weddings. It's almost ideal, actually, in some sense.
Yeah, I encourage people to do something like that. I've had one person that has been like a consistent assistant for me, and she ended up moving out to Ibiza and starting her thing there in Spain, and has done really well. But I feel like some people it works out. They jump right in and wing it, and hopefully don't screw anything up too bad for somebody's wedding. But,
I know. Well, I could be a little biased too, because I kind of started with a high volume wedding. Well, wedding mill is a terrible word, but it's kind of what it was. This was a million years ago when we were still shooting film, but it was a great experience. Yeah, because you have to deliver.
Yeah, I won't dub all high volume places wedding mills, I guess, but definitely this place was. I also edited for them for a while and learned a lot of what not to do. And that's one thing out here in Colorado. I've noticed that there's quite a few places that are higher volume, have quite a few photographers that are working for them that are still doing pretty good work and have a much better business model than what the place that I was at had. But yeah, it was kind of like both good learning of sort of what to do, what not to do, and also experiencing like these different clients where we'd go to one of Todd's weddings, and I judge like the quality of a wedding, not necessarily like the place or anything or like what they're spending, but like the people, especially like your family and the good friends. Like if the best man and the maid of honor or whoever have awesome speeches and they just go on and talk about, you just almost don't believe how amazing these people sound. those usually, they really are like legitimately really cool people. Yeah. And then I'd end up going to the studio's weddings, and they'd be like just these, man, people just didn't seem to care. There was just not the same connection. Yeah.
Well, and it's a different type of client. Yeah, that's fine.
But it's also different. I feel like sometimes some of that's maybe budget, but some of that's what they value.
Right.
So what I've found in my own business and clients that come to me that just always seem to really like, how am I getting these really cool people? And I think it kind of boils down to the fact that I try to focus more on the moments, connections between people.
Mm-hmm.
And then when people see that, it's like, well, this is what they value. They value personal connection. They value relationships. And I don't want to bad about anybody, but sometimes maybe some people care more about the flowers, care more about the details.
And that's okay.
That's spending, and that's their thing.
You're not going to change them. That's the way that they are. That's fine. But if you can find a client that appreciates you for what you do and appreciates your work, and you appreciate them because they see what you're doing and it appeals to them, that's a great connection. That's a great fit.
Right.
Yeah. Right. Everybody's happy.
Right.
Let's talk about. I know you talked about wedding party photos. That seems to be one of your. And by the way, your About Me page is great. So if you're a wedding photographer and you want a good example of how to write an About Me page, go to Matt's page, because I think reading through that page, you get a really good sense of you and who you are and what's important to you and your background. And unfortunately, a lot of photographers will keep their About Me page very sterile or very short. But I think it's really important, especially nowadays, to be competitive, to really portray your personality and your become a real person to the clients. And I think your About Me page does great. So I saw in there your swing dancing, which I guess must tie
to how my wife and I met.
Yeah, that somehow must tie together with your love for wedding party photos. So tell us about that.
Yeah, and thank you, because I've had some people say that non-clients, but wedding industry people say that's way too long.
No.
So I appreciate that, because usually clients tell me they like that. So cool. So the party or the wedding party? The wedding party?
Well, yeah, I guess both. Wedding party, because I know we'll talk about drunk dancing photos later too. But so I guess that's what I was referring to. But let's talk about wedding party photos and lighting composites. Let's talk about that.
Okay.
And then we'll go into the drunk dancing reception part. Yeah,
that's one of the things that couples tend to come to me for, is some fun bridal party photos, and some of that is doing the lighting composites. Some of that is just doing kind of random stuff that I pick up on from the group.
So let's back up. So when you say lighting composites, if someone doesn't know what that means, why don't you go ahead and explain it?
Sure. So lighting composite is doing multiple frames with a stationary camera, either on a tripod or holding really still and having somebody else use your lighting, and then lighting people individually in a group and doing it close so that you have a larger light source, so you get more flattering light on people. And then, and plus you control the spill. You can get a different angle than you might if your lights were way back. In general, I think it just comes out with really nice light on a group. And
is that self-taught, or did you learn that from a workshop or someone else? Or
I think I picked it up from Ryan Brenizer, who he may have did a video or something. and he did it on a couple, I think, with different color lights, and then he showed some examples of larger groups, and he was one of the first. Him and Michael Greenberg, I believe, has done that years and years ago. It seems to have become more popular in recent years.
It's a bit more work than a lot of photographers are willing to do, right? It's a little extra step.
Yeah, it takes a little more time. So usually prepare the client to take a little time to do that. There's been a couple where, amazingly enough, it's been like I had one where I didn't know they were going to enter this way, but everybody entered. The bridal party was introduced as village people. They had dressed up like the village people in different outfits. So when I saw that, I went to the bride while they were eating and said, can we do a quick portrait outside, with the whole bridal party all dressed up in their village people hats and stuff. And surprisingly, as drunk as they were pretty good at listening.
That's great.
But yeah, so I do that a couple ways. Usually I work with an assistant who's like my lighting person / Sherpa that will move the light through. I have done it once. I think I sent you one photo that
we'll look at in a second here. Yeah.
I do it from like the Canon Connect app. So the phone will be on the tripod. I'll have the light on a stand with a big softbox and my phone, and I'll trigger it that way walking through. So, to complete the process, which I guess I didn't do, it's obviously you do multiple frames, and then later you bring it into Photoshop and then just kind of paint in where the lit people are. And ideally, if people haven't moved too much, you get it.
Hopefully that post-processing doesn't take too long, right?
Yeah, it's not too bad. If you're on a tripod and if people stay pretty still, they're not moving too much where you get like overlaps, tends to go pretty quickly in post. I'm not one to like light every single person, so usually it's maybe, smaller groups, so maybe like 6 or 7 frames together. So and I think it's worth it, just a little extra work to have something that stands out a little more and kind of that sort of like Vanity Fair look.
Yeah, it really is, and we'll look at one of those photos in a second. So, do you sort of explain that technique to your clients when they're interviewing you, or show the difference between that kind of a group photo and more of like the standard, so to speak, standard photo?
Yeah, and we'll do that one too. Usually, I usually basically tell them if we don't have time or if they're not willing to give us a little extra time, we'll do kind of like that standard photo and give them some examples of that. Or if in the moment of the day things are running late, we'll say, do you want to do that and just do like 1 or 2 frames of that as the group, or do you want to get some quicker, easier stuff and have maybe more of those? And they usually just go with the more complicated one, the nicer looking one.
If I was the client, I'd be saying, well, look, we hired Matt for a reason. He wants us to do this. Let's trust it. And if you have that rapport with the clients, they'll trust you. If they have any interest at all in, following through with the reason why they hired you, they'll do it. Yeah. Usually, I hope. Unless, like you said, you never know. Weddings can be very fluid situations.
Yeah, you kind of have to be ready for anything.
Yeah.
So, one of the things that just a little pet peeve of those photos, I see them a lot these days. I like to do it a little more, I guess, balanced with the ambient light, where you're not necessarily blacking out the entire room except for the lights, unless that's absolutely necessary. And if it is, then sometimes using more than one light in those scenarios where you have one light that is the key light that's moving through, and then maybe another 1 or 2 lights that are like the hair light behind them, just to kind of separate them if it is that dark. Most of the time I do it, I get away with just one light because it's going to take long enough already. I've gotten a little quicker at doing it now, but it's still like, it is still a little more involved, and I usually do like one smiling, one serious, or silly or something, kind of getting them feeling the vibe for what the group is like. And so yeah, it does take a little longer that way.
So say you have a group of, I don't know, 10 people in the wedding party. Give us an idea, like how long would it take for you to say, okay, here we go, let's go do this, and then you gotta seat them, you gotta arrange them, light them, shoot it. How long does it take, the process? For as far as the wedding party is concerned, how much time would you say how much time do we need to go to them and say, I need this many minutes of your time to go do this?
So what I ask for is like maybe 15 minutes, and you'll get like 2 frames out of that.
Mm-hmm.
I'll often do that quicker. I've done it in 5 with rain coming,
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
But yeah, and it varies a little. That's what I ask for. Is that 15 minutes extra?
It's not bad.
But it kind of depends on the bridal party, and try and get them to listen and understand what you're doing. And the more they listen, the quicker this is going to go, sort of thing.
Trust me, people. Trust me.
Yeah.
Just follow directions.
The more you listen, the sooner you get to drink.
That's right. Because we'll get back to the party.
Right.
And speaking of drinking and partying, so drunk dancing photos, reception photos.
Yeah.
One of your fortes, huh?
That was something I think I sort of just picked up with Todd. I think maybe he was known a little for that. And in New Jersey, when we lived there, it was definitely more. Most weddings were longer weddings, were like 11 hours or more that I would do.
Long days.
Todd's were definitely longer. And so when I went to Illinois, I kept doing that. I wanted to do wedding party or wedding reception photos. Mm-hmm. And so I wanted to stay later and have longer days. So I just started out with long day packages. I didn't have any short options. And that was one of the things I think that helped me with moving and getting clients, was I didn't want to lowball myself, but I kind of just gave them more to start. So whereas maybe somebody was at 8 hours at a certain price, I'd be more hours basically.
Mm-hmm. Okay.
But that gave me the opportunity to do more party photos, and picking up, the lighting and sort of the technique, how to get in there and not be afraid to kind of get right in the party and catch the dance floor shenanigans. That sort of gave me something to set me apart a little from people. Mm-hmm. And I would hear from other photographers like, who wants more photos of their drunk friends? Like, I was like, every single one of my friends.
Yeah.
And what is pretty cool about that, and what I've sort of gained in value over that, is that if you're able to do it in a way that really captures like the energy and the mood and the action and everything, that both like the bride and groom and the people in the photo really value those photos, because this is kind of like more them than they have been the whole day. Mm-hmm. They're like letting loose. They're with their friends, going nuts the way they would at any other fun event they'd have together.
Yeah, it's true.
I actually had a photo where the guy in it commented, like, he was like so glad this photo existed, like that this was him and the other guy that were just, this was so them, right? Like,
the guests appreciate it, right? Because sometimes the guests love those photos of themselves too.
Right. Like,
and sometimes, it's really the best opportunity to shoot the guests, unless you want to do those, the table shots, which are like,
it shows them having fun. Yeah. This is like peak excitement, like the happiest moments for those people of the day.
Yeah. And how do you light your reception photos?
So varies, based on the room. Generally, if I have a room where I can bounce, I bounce the on camera and then have my assistant as a backlight, either hidden behind them, or off out of the frame.
So assistant walks around with a light on a pole kind of a thing?
I like them to have it. This is kind of something I picked up from Todd. Not kind of, it is, but I like them to have it so that they know whether or not they're in the frame, and it's not just a random light that may kind of blow it out or screw it up or something. They know that they're either hidden or out of the frame because they don't see me. And so they have to kind of resist the urge. A lot of times they'll like keep wanting to stick their hand out, and you'll get this like random hand sticking out of somebody's head with a light on it. But if they're holding it, I don't mind it being lower, and as long as it's hidden.
Okay.
And
so you don't have like the stationary lights on stands at the reception typically then?
Not typically. Sometimes I do though, and here in Colorado with all the lodges and stuff with ceilings and stuff, I'll still do that. But I'll still I'll have enough where I can adjust them and use those kind of as the key light and still have my assistant adding another dimensional light to it.
Okay.
And that's one thing I feel like, it adds some dimension to people and to the room. And sometimes these long, narrow rooms, it kind of gives you less of a cavern feel to it.
Right. Just gives you way more options to work with that light. Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
And it's been something that people have really connected with.
Yeah. I think the trick too is having a good assistant that knows what to do with it, because sometimes you want the direct, sometimes you want to bounce, sometimes you want to light the background. So they have to either intuitively know what you want or just give you lots of options, or you have do you have like a communication signal, like hand signals, voice signals, headsets?
Usually I'm just
jumping up and down.
Go one or the other.
Yeah, okay.
Or if I'm holding up and shooting blind or something, that they know to go down, and if I'm crouching, they know to go up or something to counter with that. And if somebody, hopefully, I usually have a couple people that work with me pretty consistently.
That's the key,
It's more difficult if you got a new person like every other wedding or something.
Yeah.
But if you can get something, there's couples that work together, and like the Mans or something, they seem to like share a brain, where they know.
Yeah, ESP connection is through the brain.
They know where to go and what the other person's thinking. So that's definitely helpful. But generally the stay hidden sort of thing, know that you're not in the shot, and pay attention to me as well as what's going on for them. But the drunk dancing, I think, is kind of like the derogatory term for it, that people hear. That's like, more drunk dancing. And I think maybe it's because
party photo.
Yeah, it's a party. It's people having a good time, and it's difficult. You're taking a lot of crap photos because it can be difficult. But if you get enough of those good ones, then people want those in their album too. It's not like they just want all the portraits or anything. They want like the full story of the day, including all the craziness. So.
Well, let's talk about inspiration then. Inspiration outside of wedding photography. So what do you do, like to stay fresh, to keep pushing forward, to sort of inspire new ways to shoot? What do you use for inspiration?
I draw it from a lot of different things. Sometimes it's, given that wedding has so many different aspects to it, like details, I'll sometimes draw from product photographers that have something unique. I forget who the photographer was. It was like a photo of guitar picks or something on a shot with light backlit through, so you're seeing like that sort of tortoise shell pick with the light coming through. And I thought, that would be cool for some pedals with like rings on it or something. So we did something like that one time. Sometimes I maybe go overboard.
That's great, because commercial photographers, they're absolute masters of light. Because they have so much time to set it up. It's not like a wedding we got about 5 seconds. But
with that particular one, I when I saw a chance to do it was like a glass coffee table, and I thought, oh, let's do this. Can we grab some pedals? We grabbed some pedals, put the ring up. I'm underneath a coffee table, realizing at first that my macro lens is too long to focus, to hold it up without banging the glass. So I think the 16 to 35 focuses close enough. I could be in there, like with my camera smushed against my face, and still get the shot. But then it was like I'm bouncing off the floor, sort of.
Right.
So then you're seeing odd things in the room. So I had my assistant put a reflector over it, so it'd just be white, and that just ended up working. Then she bounces off the ceiling as well. It was very involved, just for
yeah. But you got to work fast. It's a wedding. You got to work fast, right? So
yeah, and it was like, but sometimes I get those sorts of inspirational ideas. I'm sort of determined, like I'm gonna get this thing done.
Yeah, as long as you're not shooting that when they're cutting the cake or something, you know. Oh no.
But yeah, obviously other photographers, but other things as well, like movies. I think there's a photo I sent you that is definitely inspired by like a battle scene from like Game of Thrones or something, which just seems like an odd thing, but it's kind of an odd photo. Yeah. Or one of the things actually that I think I really draw from, which is my background in painting. I like looking at painting and drawing, and recently went out with my brother. He does plein air painting, so he goes out and stands for hours, which is it's a cool experience if you're a photographer and you're used to like click, that's cool, click, you're moving quickly.
Yeah.
Totally different experience to like stand in one place
for hours. Right.
And watch the light change, in front of you.
Yeah. Well, what kind of painting did you do?
Oil painting, like landscapes.
Nice.
When I was in school, I would do more like portrait painting. But the other cool thing that I feel is really helpful from painting is that you're literally creating the composition. You are, even if it means changing it a little from what you see. So it forces you to really understand composition. Like you are making decisions, putting lines in certain places, making things dark, so that you're making conscious decisions about the whole thing. It's a little different with photography, that you're working with what's in front of you, but it does. I think it's made it second nature for me to think of things compositionally that maybe I don't even consciously think of in the moment. You just begin to see it, and then later you'll be like, oh, look how like these things lined up in a certain way when I was just kind of shooting in the moment. Yeah. And really it's just kind of like those little movements sometimes that can make all the difference.
Yeah. That is interesting, because I do hear a lot of photographers say they're inspired by like paint, like looking at paintings or art, and as I because I love art paintings. Never having really been much of a painter myself, but I really can see that there's a difference between having to create the composition in your head, or at least even if you're looking at a scene, I want to compose it slightly differently this way that it works. So you're constructing the composition. That's going to influence your photography in a slightly different way than just appreciating composition, because your mind is working a little bit harder maybe on what's that composition, what do I want it to be. So as you're framing the photo, those are the things that are going through your mind, it seems to me.
Right.
Yeah. When was the last time you got to do any painting?
When my brother was here, so I don't know if that was about a year ago, March. So, but now that time is, things are getting slower. Wedding season's slowing a bit. I have some walls that I'm planning on putting paintings up in. Actually, setting up a little space in the basement to
very cool
get to painting a little more.
I keep saying I want to do some of that. I just never get the time.
Yeah,
it's time consuming.
Yeah. Plus, just the every time if you have the time to sit down and paint for a while, then the next time it's getting out the paints again, mixing the colors again, cleaning the brushes again.
Yeah. You can see why a lot of people take it up in retirement, because now you finally have time, right? When I retire, I'll finally get to my painting.
Yeah. Since my brother left, actually my younger son went out with us a couple times, and and we were like, yeah, we should do that again. Yeah. We should do that again. We haven't done it again yet.
Yeah. Well, speaking of images, let's go ahead and look at some. Why don't we do that?
Okay. Sounds good.
I always seem to mess this up. I'm going to see if I can do it right this time. Okay, so I'm going to share my screen, and I'm going to go into my interview folder, interviews, here we go. Here, bring this up, and then I'll make sure I'm sharing it properly. Okay, so I'm going to go in here. I'm going to look at my screen. There we go. That should be working. Can you see that?
Yeah. Awesome. See it double, but I can see it.
Yeah, that's okay. Yeah, on Facebook and on YouTube, you should just see the image with us in the little corner.
So this was a lighting composite, and this was almost the whole wedding. This was a small wedding in Aspen, and so it's just their closest family and friends there, and yeah, it's one of the better examples of what I try to do with it. And in terms of this particular bride, also knew some styling. I think she does some, I think, skincare products or something. So she's used to being in front of the camera, and definitely has more of a style in her mind. So she
looks comfortable in front of the camera. That's for sure. Yeah.
So when I was setting up the tripod and stuff, she was already getting people posed a little.
That's helpful.
So by the time I was ready, it was more tweaking, anything. Like I like to have people touching as much as they can. So like parents touching each other, holding hands or hand on shoulder or something, leaning into each other. As much connection as possible.
I think you really lucked out with the location too, with the furniture and the backdrop as well.
So yeah, that's in the basement level of St. Regis in Aspen. I had been there once before with when I first moved out here, second shooting for Lauren Lindy, who was in town. She's out in Tahoe, but she was in town, and so I'd seen it then. So when I found out we were there, I pretty much knew I wanted to use that backdrop, and furniture was around. I did have to kind of move it around to get it to where we wanted it, and then it was pretty simple for these guys. Other than the kids who were listened to a little less than everyone else.
Kids are a challenge. It's true.
Yeah. But they were great. So we did one that was, I can't see it from here. I think these guys are smiling. One smiling and one a little more serious. But yeah, I was really happy. And then, like I said, in balancing the light is important, especially if you have like a nice background like that.
Yeah, no, it's a really good example. It's not oftentimes you get people to cooperate as well with the great location and the great backdrops and everything. Everything sort of comes together, so it's kind of nice.
Yeah.
All right, let's get another one. This is an interesting one. The axe throwing and throwing.
So this was my sort of Game of Thrones inspired one. These were hatchets, groomsmen's gifts that they were after their ceremony. They went to their farm and were throwing hatchets and drinking.
It's a good combination.
Yeah. So as we were kind of wrapping that up and getting ready to do bridal portraits, I realized everybody needed to grab their flowers. So I just thought, we should do a hatchet bouquet toss. And I was really all the ladies that were like, yes, they were way really into it. Let's throw these things. It turned out pretty well. And I always love an opportunity when where like cranking up your f-stop is necessary, like often in weddings we're shooting with a really low aperture.
Yeah.
Whereas this one I needed to definitely have a higher aperture to kind of get that effect. Like you're looking down the line and seeing everybody and catching everything flying through the air. Just kind of really worked out with the trees that were there, and it gave us a nice dark background where we could see everything. So
yeah, I appreciate it because I've looked at probably a million wedding photos in my life, and I don't think I've ever seen a hatchet and bouquet toss at the same time. So that's a first.
Yeah, this is kind of one of those things that where I get asked from clients, like, where do I get some of these ideas? Is this like Pinterest or something? And really, it's just some of the more unique ones I've done have just been in the moment, just kind of getting a feel from people. And then when you get some idea from the vibe of the group or what they're doing or their personalities or something, that you ask them to do it. That was actually that was a lesson from Todd Loeffler for sure. When I would be working with him and he'd have some idea. Actually, one venue was the same venue working with him and working at this wedding studio where I was second shooting for another photographer, where there was this big silo and a little hole that he wanted them to crawl through because it was open at the top, really cool lighting coming down. And so he asked them, he had this idea, and he asked them, and she was like, oh yeah, let's do this. I was there a few weeks later at actually it was a different site, but a similar situation. And he looked in and he was like, oh, that's pretty cool. She's not going to want to go through there and go in there, get her dress dirty. We'll just go over here. So like when he had an idea, he just kind of shut it down based on what he thought they were willing to do. And maybe if you're at a studio with a bunch of different photographers and maybe the client isn't as familiar with you, maybe that's a safe play. But if somebody's coming to you for your eye, and you have an idea, why not throw it out there and see if they're willing to do it? And if it's something that you're gleaning from them, like in this case with the hatchets, that's not like as unique as it is, it's not like some off the wall thing for their wedding.
Sure.
They were out there.
They're definitely into it.
Yeah.
Yeah. I always thought the worst they can say is no. So, why not ask if you really see a great opportunity? And again, like what we were talking about before, if the client trusts you and trusts your eye and trusts why they hired you, hopefully they're into it. They'll go for it. How many? Okay, honest question. How many takes of the hatchet throw did it take?
Just two.
Two?
Just two.
Not bad.
Yeah, another example I didn't send you, but we had a wedding that they had told me they were getting married in a movie theater. They didn't tell me it was a horror movie themed wedding.
Okay.
So and it was they had custom horror themed shirts. They had all these like the program to the wedding was "To Death Do Us Part" with like a zombie hand coming out of the ground. But then while we're setting up, I saw the theater. I said, do you mind if I get a photo from behind with everybody looking at you when you kiss? They were cool with that. So I set up some lights up by where the projector would be. And then as they were entering, the flower girls were popcorn girls. So they were throwing popcorn down the aisle. So I saw that and I thought, all right, we got to do like a movie theater jump scare sort of thing with the bridal party. And so After seeing that vantage point from behind them, basically from the screen looking back, I thought, that's the way to go. So we got approval from the theater who was opening right after us, and they let us throw popcorn everywhere. So we just had them all scream and throw popcorn in there, and got looks like the projectors on. Pretty cool.
Isn't that how most theaters are covered in popcorn all over the floor anyway? So.
Right. And again, it was an idea that reflected their wedding, even though it's not like a wedding photo that you normally see.
Yeah. Speaking of wedding photos, you don't normally see. What is going on here? Is this like a bridal bouquet toss gone wrong or something?
I like to let people think for at least a while that she's body slamming him. But this was their entrance and introduction to the reception, and everybody often has some little thing they do. Theirs was pretty unique. She came down and was waving. He ran in and stole her bouquet. She acts like she shoots him. He falls to the ground. Then she goes and she resuscitates him. So she's shocking him, and that's what this mid moment is
I would never have guessed that.
Defibrillator, him acting like he's flailing around being defibrillated. Yeah, so that's a fun one. They and bride and groom obviously are not there. They were waiting to be introduced. So when they get to see this, they're really stoked.
Another unique shot. I've never seen someone doing that before.
Yeah, I've never seen anybody do it again either.
No. But a lot of weddings, I always like to think, all weddings are the same. No, there's always some unique aspects of each wedding. There's always something going on. You got to say, this is unique to this wedding.
Right, and you got to be ready. That one was I was thankfully where I needed to be, but a quick dropping to the floor to get to that low angle just at the.
So how did you anticipate this happening?
This particular one or the one before?
This one. This one now with this guy flying over the shoulder here.
I think they were going to attempt the Dirty Dancing lift or something.
Oh, right.
So I saw them getting lined up, and thought doing it from this angle might be good. Didn't know he'd end up over his shoulder. This is actually one I was referring to earlier, where he sees it, and the guy that you see in his face there, he was like this. They were cousins, and was like, "This is totally us." He's just so glad that this photo exists. They were both in the wedding party, so even though they, have nice, fun photos from throughout the wedding, this was them, and this wouldn't have happened probably if I wouldn't have had the photo, at least if I wouldn't have stayed a little later when they're a little more loosened up, and just been willing to get in there, get in the action and shoot wide and get right up in people's faces. And when I got that one, I was like, yeah, that's just when I got that comment. That was this is why you do these silly quote unquote drunk dancing photos.
Yeah.
Because you'll get some of these crazy moments that people are. Who knows if he really remembered it?
Probably not. Probably not. But he remembers it now.
Right.
Yeah, they do give you some unique opportunities sometimes.
Yeah, this is another another person from the bridal party rocking out.
Black and white. So how do you choose between black and white and color when you're delivering to your clients?
So these days I just send them everything in both color and black and white.
Oh, really? Everything?
Yeah, and in Lightroom it's easy enough to convert everything quickly. Okay. I used to only do what I felt like I have a personal opinion on what looks better as black and white, and for me it's more like it needs to be for a reason. It needs to complement it, maybe make it more graphic, maybe get rid of some odd colors so that, you focus on what you need to focus on more. But I found that people would ask for the color version or ask for a black and white version of
Mm-hmm.
something else.
So do you give them some sort of like an online gallery to look at through them, and then every image is shown in color and black and white kind of a thing?
Yeah, so I
Oh,
use
okay.
Pixelset for delivery, and then so that gives me the option of giving them a highlight gallery.
Gotcha.
And so those ones, I'll put the ones that I feel like need to be in black and white in black and white. And since I've been doing that, they'll still have a whole folder of all the black and white. But in terms of what people end up showing or printing, they usually go with what I've already chosen as black and white in those highlight galleries.
Mm-hmm.
And yeah, this particular one, I just felt like there was definitely some crazy colors going on, and it just kind of simplified it.
Yeah.
Uh,
Yeah, if you have some crazy DJ lighting going on, sometimes it works, and sometimes it's interesting, and sometimes it doesn't work.
yeah, and their faces are priceless there.
Yeah, yeah. It's always good to catch a good expression. Doesn't always happen. When it does happen, it's gold. So here's some really nice lighting here. So I'm really curious about the lighting on this one.
So this was, I believe, just a single light, or if my on-camera light was on, it was very low. And then I had my assistant kind of side lighting there. I actually photoshopped her out from
That
the
explains.
left-hand corner there.
Okay.
Um, and
So she and her light were in frame.
right. And
Nice job.
thank you.
Couldn't tell.
In the past, I used to do manual lighting for my assistant, but I started doing ETTL for these scenarios where if the light was in the frame, it might have really blown some things out.
Yeah.
And yeah, this was just one of those moments. I love speeches and toasts, and if you can get one that's like lit well at the right time, that just kind of makes it really dramatic and kind of really sort of it almost tells a story a little more than just standard shot by using some unique lighting. And they kind of had like this perfect little cubby at this place, Delaware Mountain Chateau in Estes Park, where they're kind of raised up a little almost, and you got this little slot in the room there, and it's facing west, so you get a little bit of the sun, the sky back there.
Yeah. That really helps too. If it was all black back there, it wouldn't have been nearly as nice.
Yeah.
But that's part of what I see here. In terms of it's your experience and your eye that is able to, because obviously you can't see the image before the flash goes off. You have to know ahead of time in your mind, in your brain,
Right.
what that's going to look like. So you have to be able
Right.
to pre-envision it, even though you can't actually see it, and pull it off. That says a lot to not only your vision, but your experience to be able to do that, because not everybody could do that.
Thank you.
Yeah. Not everybody would want to do that, because they're just, it's a toast. I'll just take a picture of a toast, right? It's a nice composition. I'm nicely centered. It's nicely symmetrical. I got some nice light outside, but the additional lighting is just going that extra mile for your client.
Right, and then this is kind of one of the benefits I usually tell couples about having a second photographer, where I feel like, there's a chance maybe I would just blow this shot because you are like envisioning the lighting. It was something that was like towards the end of the toast. I had done some other angles and gotten close-up reactions, but I was looking for something a little more dramatic for that last toast with everybody's glasses raised, and but I did have another photographer that was doing a little more like standard room, lighting up the whole scenario, the whole scene a little more. So if this one didn't work, I'd at least have another one.
Yeah. Well, as we like to say in general, you always want to have that safe shot. So
Right.
get the safe shot that the client will be happy with, and it documents the moment. But if you have the time and the inclination and the opportunity to go for something a little special, go for something special.
Right.
So here's one of your famous images from your site, also showcasing Colorado.
Yeah. These guys were troopers. This is about a little over 11,000 feet up near Loveland Pass in, I think it was December or January, I think 2 years ago. Mm-hmm. So it was a warmer year, thankfully, but it was still pretty cold up there.
Oh, sure.
In the high 20s, low 30s with wind, as you can see. And this was one of the options I give for engagement couples is to do to kind of upgrade to a sunset shoot.
Mm-hmm. Was this sunrise or sunset?
This is sunrise.
Sunrise. Oh, early.
And it's really early. Yeah. You got to get up there when it's even colder and dark.
Who wouldn't want to do that?
Thankfully, a place like this. Yeah, right?
Yeah.
These guys, they were pretty frozen. Brought some hand warmers for them. Told them to wear some, warm, long underwear and stuff to keep themselves warm, especially for her wearing a dress like that.
Hey, but we all know that great art takes suffering, right?
I appreciate it. Well, the nice thing about this area is, and for this type of engagement shoot, where we're doing more than one location, and
right.
I don't want to take too much time to get to the location. And this one, thankfully, Loveland Pass is like I think one of the higher passes in the country. So you're already up high. It's easy to get to from the road. Mm-hmm. We actually went to one side and then took a break in the car, warmed everybody up before we jumped out again. But yeah, they were definitely troopers, and I feel like this is something people are looking here. It's hard not to want to do this sort of thing in Colorado.
Sure. It definitely screams Colorado, but I mean, it's also a lot of great combination of elements that all came together in terms of the colors, the wind, the lighting, right? The sky. I mean, it's just nice when a photo comes together because you weren't in control of a lot of those elements, but you're able to take advantage of it, which is great.
Yeah, and I think waiting for the wind, especially the wind, really helped this. Made it definitely this frame a lot better than the other frames. And sometimes I think it's just waiting, and resisting. I know they're freezing up there, but knowing or hoping, this is going to probably happen.
You didn't bring a portable fan, Matt? Come on, where's your dedication? Now, if it was a commercial photographer, they'd bring a fan, right? We're going to create just the right amount of wind, just the amount of right angle. Nah. No, this is a crazy image. I want to hear about this one.
This is kind of the opposite of where where sometimes I want to just take a bunch of photos for portraits, let people get comfortable and wait for that perfect moment between them or the elements around them or the wind or whatever, getting the frame you want and shooting a ton of frames along the way. Mm-hmm. This one was literally, this was probably the split second before things went awry. I let the guy just one frame and she took off. She had wanted to do this a smoke bomb photo, which I had until the previous week I've only had them twice, and it was 2 in a row. I'd never really worked with them before. But I had heard that they can shoot out some sparks. I had not heard that they can shoot out color onto people. And,
especially a white wedding dress.
Yeah. So, and I think I prepared them for that, at least the spark part, and the fact that you can't really breathe smoke.
Yeah, so I've heard.
I learned that from the previous wedding, the week before. But bridal party was holding these, or the wedding party was holding these on either side, and some of them were a little more enthusiastic than others. Some were a little freaked out. I think one of the sparks went down to her dress and got a little hole in it, and maybe a little color on it.
Yeah, but again, you suffer for great art. This is a great image. Right? It's worth it.
So right after this split second, somebody said something. She ran off. I had no idea what had happened.
Yeah.
Thankfully, our wedding planner was amazing. She was like washing it out, and the bride handled it really well. It was after the ceremony. So.
But you had multiple bombs going off all at the same time here. You had a number of different colors going on here.
I don't know that I knew it. I don't think I knew at the time that these were like Broncos colors, and I don't know if they intended it to be Broncos colors.
Right.
And it kind of is, I guess. And it's you don't know how this is going to react to you. I kind of had an idea of some of other people's photos that I've seen where they've used some lighting and like the way it looked up or looked lit up. And this spot, I kind of knew that the light coming slightly from behind and up from behind would be nice, and it was all shaded around us. And I was hoping that would basically be it for the smoke. But you don't really kind of have an idea of the wind, but you don't really know where it's going to go.
Yeah.
It's just kind of a crapshoot. So
it's kind of a crapshoot.
It's lucky.
Yeah, but this works. It's the composition and the lighting and the colors, and it looks like a painting. It looks like an abstract painting. You know, even the figures themselves look very painterly, so to speak. Yeah.
Thank you.
This is the type of image where I would love to see like someone who was like 15 feet back with a wide angle lens to shoot like how it was made, kind of a thing. You know? I'm sure it doesn't look anything like this from 15 feet back.
There's at least a couple of people not
crouching down,
building these things, hoping they're not shooting sparks on themselves or.
It's an amazing image, though.
Thank you.
Yeah, it's one of those things where
you mentioned it looking abstract. That's one of those compositional things that in terms of the way I think of things abstractly. When I paint more abstractly.
Mm-hmm.
So I'm thinking of composition. I'm thinking of line and light and color and shape, and not necessarily.
Yeah, well, that one everything just seems to work.
Yeah. So this was the first one the week before.
Mm-hmm. The first experiment with smoke bombs.
Yeah, and the wedding planner, I didn't know that was going to happen. This was during the groom's barat for their entrance, to the ceremony, and she screamed in my ear that they're going to let off the smoke bombs. And I included this one because of the next image too, because this is just an insane barat. It was so amazing. These guys were just incredible. The whole family and friends just going nuts down this alleyway in Chicago. And this groomsman here, you don't see the groom behind him, but he's riding a rickshaw. He's riding the bike in, and I was choking a little on the smoke. And
hopefully you don't pass out.
Right. And that kind of leads into the next photo, which is kind of just one of these things where we think we know what's good and a good photo, a good moment, and we choose things based on that and the artistry, etc. And sometimes there's photos that like mean a ton to other people, to the couple, that you cannot anticipate. And this was one of those. They got almost everybody gets an album now with my packages.
Yeah.
And so I pre-design an album that's big and bigger than what comes with their package, and we kind of whittle it down. And that previous image was in it. We had a full page of different shots from his barat, and he had asked about his uncle in the orange shirt, how he met, or orange. I don't know if that's just what if
Some kind of jacket.
Yeah, I don't
Mm-hmm.
know what they call
I
him.
don't know
I'm
what it is.
sorry.
Yeah, I'm sure it has a
But
name. Yeah.
he was dressed in orange, just lively guy, and I immediately thought of this one because he was hamming it up, and his wife was not happy with the smoke, and she was covering her face. She didn't want her photo taken.
Right, right. But he's got a lot of personality, though.
Yeah, that was why I kept it, because it was such a great photo of him. Not necessarily technically the greatest photo, but when I showed this to them, they were like just laughing and like, this is so amazing. This is so, again, like the last one, this is so them.
Yeah,
This is
right,
totally
right,
their personalities,
right.
even though I personally don't feel like it's showing much of their aunt's personality. But they're saying, yeah, this is totally their personality.
Yeah.
And out of like a 2-day wedding and thousands of photos, and probably like about 1,600 photos that they got from 2 days, this is one of the, ones that's maybe 150 or so that went in their album.
Went in their album. Yeah, that's a really important lesson for wedding photographers to learn, that we always go for, oh, this is the perfect photo, the composition is great, I really nailed it artistically. But you have to remember that you're shooting for your clients, and as far as your clients are concerned, sometimes capturing relatives or friends like this that capture their personality, even though it's not like the greatest award-winning photo in the world, it means so much to them, right?
Right.
More than it means to us, because we're not personally attached. But we have to always remember that we're not just creating great photographs, but we're creating memories and heirloom images for the family and for the clients.
Right.
Yeah, it's great.
Yeah, and it's cool when it's rewarding. It's one thing I love about I do these in-person meetings afterwards, and like a reveal, an album design after their wedding. And it's things like that have become super rewarding, like that I didn't used to see when maybe I did in a gallery. Never really see their reaction for the first time when they're seeing their photos, or sitting down and going through an album and seeing what photos they gravitate towards, or what really means a lot to them. And it's very, just a much more rewarding kind of experience to see how your photos are affecting them, like in real time, for the first time when they see them.
It's really true. It's one of the great things about being a wedding photographer, is to know that you're making your clients happy, and it's not just a business client who's just you're shooting like a commercial shoot for, but it's you know that these photos will be shared with that family for potentially generations, right? It's such a great thing.
And then with these guys, they were like, can you get us this album by this date? We're gonna we want to bring it with us to India. So all the family in India that didn't make it to their wedding is going to see it as well.
Nice, nice. Well, great job, Matt. Really, really great to talk with you. Thanks so much.
Thank you.
So if people want to get in contact with you, what's the best way that they can reach you or find more of your work?
www.mswphotos.com is my website. That's usually the easiest way, through the contact form.
Okay.
MSW_photos on Instagram. That's another good way.
Awesome.
But
we'll share all your links and contact information when we post stuff onto YouTube as well.
Thank you.
Okay, so it was great meeting you. Thanks so much, Matt.
Great talking to you.
Take care, and we'll talk soon.
All right.
Okay. Bye.